Hello, English 102 online students. Professor Berninger coming at you. Have my teaching assistant here, Simon the cat. How are you, buddy? You ready for a good class? That's a good cat. He's a good boy, yeah. That's a good cat. And I want to answer your excellent questions. I'm going to move a little closer here. I want to answer your excellent questions about John Cheever's fantastic little short story, The Swimmer. What do you think? You're being too cute back there, Simon. You're being distracting. What can you do with a cat, right? Yeah, it's a good boy. Oh, he's a good cat. That's a good cat. All right, let's get to work here. So my goal with this video, to answer your questions, although you guys answered each other's questions spot on. I could not be more impressed with your work on these discussion boards. I could not be more impressed with your work on these discussion boards. Keep it up, right? Keep it up. But I'm going to work through the questions, steal some of your answers, and then you'll be prepared for the essay exam, which is due on Sunday, since it's Monday at 3:36, and I promised you it would be up this morning, and it wasn't. I'm going to add a couple days to the due date. So, essay exam due Sunday at midnight or before, right? Or before. So, I'm going to start partway through the discussion board here. Aaron Steer. Aaron, you posed some good questions. After reading The Swimmer, I have many questions, and you should. I was so confused by the end, it made me feel like I hadn't even read it. That's why you have me and you have your classmates. What is the true timeline of the story? Aaron, you got right to it. A, 1 day. B, 1 year. C, an entire adulthood. D, all of the above. The answer is, Simon? D, all of the above. That's what makes the story a little confusing, but that's what makes it so genius, is that it is a day in the life of Nettie Merrill, but it's also his entire adult life in a day. And Cheever throws in some things. Nettie clearly ages in the story, so that shows that it takes place over many, many years. Of course, it starts in the morning and ends late in the day, so that's a day. And the leaves change, right? There is a mention very early on in the story of the apple trees blossoming, and we all know, because we live in apple country, that takes place around the second week of May. And then later on, leaves are falling off of trees and leaves are yellowing. So we have the passage of seasons. So John Cheever writes about a life in a day and a day in the life of Nettie Merrill. And so we see the effects of his life choices, which we're going to get to. Aaron, thank you. I'm going to stick with Aaron's questions. What happened to this man that he didn't remember, and why do people keep telling him they won't give him money? Well, they tell him they won't give him money tells us that he's been asking for money, right? Tells us he's been asking for money, so that reveals that he has had financial problems and is having financial problems. Why didn't he remember? Now, there are a couple lines in the story about memory, and one of them is, had Nettie become so skilled in the repression of unpleasant facts, or had his memory been failing him? So we have this ability, we talked about this with the young Goodman Brown, to stuff unpleasant facts back here into our subconscious and lose awareness of them, right? Sometimes they come up in dreams. But hey, I'll have another drink. What's that gonna hurt? Well, it might hurt a lot if it's your 8th one of the day, Nettie. Yes, he's gotten so good at living life in his own reality, which we all do, but in this case, altered delusional reality, that he can behave kind of like a child and still have all the adult things, which he has lost at the end, which we'll get to. Be patient. We're being patient, right, buddy? Okay, so thank you, Aaron, for getting us started there. I'm going to go back to the top here and grab some questions from Cortini. What happened in Nettie Merrill's life and to his family that he's on a path of self-destruction? We'll get to that. We've already touched on that. why do the neighbors know about his past? Because he's repressed the memories. And of course, they are aware of what is going on in his life. And a lot of you were like, from a literal standpoint, and then some of the answers were like, let's not do this literally. And, you know, so this story is one you really shouldn't take literally. There's a lot of symbolism and a lot of playing with the time with it as well. So good questions, good questions. Yeah, so a lot of you are interested in his forgetting, his not knowing. Believe me, we all have parts of our lives that we've lived that we've repressed, and we have to do that to move forward. It can be dangerous, it can be healthy. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, good, all right. Ooh, so Quinn Hogan, why did social standings matter to Nettie? Well, let's be honest, Quinn. Social standings do matter to almost all of us. They probably shouldn't, but they do to Nettie. And as he goes through the story, his social standing falls. And when he is at the Biswangers pool, he shows up at the Biswangers, and Mrs. Biswanger, can you tell I like to say the word Biswanger? Simon, I should have named you Biswanger. No, I shouldn't have done that. He gets to the Biswangers pool, and Mrs. Biswanger is, oh, look, we have a party crasher here. And we find out that Mrs. Biswanger used to invite Nettie and his wife, but they had a higher social standing. They weren't going to go to her party because she had dentists and realtors and optometrists. Second-tier people, right? And veterinarians. Yeah, I need optometrists, veterinarians, and dentists. But in the social order, they are kind of second-tier people. Doctors, lawyers, stockbrokers are at the top. College professors are way above everybody else, of course. So anyway, he used to not go to the Biswangers parties, and now he's not even invited. So his social standing has fallen because of his behavior and probably his financial troubles that we find out throughout the story. Yep. How much time passed? Yep. Okay. Do you think everyone owned a pool in the community? Seems like the only way to get anywhere. Another good one, Quinn. You know, if you look at aerial photos of wealthy neighborhoods, everybody's got a pool. It's stupid, right? Use the community pool, though it's kind of stanky in this story. But everybody's got their own pool. Folks, I'm cutting to it. You ready? The theme of the story, the dangers of excess. E-X-C-E-S-S. Everybody having a swimming pool is excessive. It's very excessive, right? America is the land of excess. We have bigger houses, bigger cars, bigger bellies than any other country on average in the world. So we are the land of excess. Go to Europe, which is just as wealthy a place in most regards, and everything's smaller. Everything is scaled down. I like it. It's a much more human scale. But many of you brought up the swimming pools, and the swimming pools are highly symbolic. The first swimming pool in the story is at the Halloran's, and that is, I believe it's the Halloran's, and that is fed from an artesian well. An artesian well, you just dig a little hole in the ground and water comes out, right? You don't even have to drill. And that is like Nettie being born. It's Mother Earth letting her water flow out. And it's a natural, beautiful pool. And then every pool, not quite in order, but they get progressively a little less welcoming. And he comes to one pool that is empty, devoid of life. Water almost always symbolizes life in literature. And it's pure and fresh and clean at the start of life, at the start of the story. And then there's no life at one point. And then the public pool, which Nettie's not used to. Nettie's an upper class guy. He doesn't go to public pools, right? It stanks. And the symbolism of him not having an identity disc is a symbol of him not having identity out in public. His identity is wrapped up in private parties, in private homes, in the private world of, where are we? The story is probably set in Westchester County. So Columbia and Greene County, And then we have Ulster and Dutchess. Putnam County sneaks in there, and then on the east side of the Hudson is Westchester, generally a pretty wealthy area, a suburb area of Manhattan, of New York City, for people to live and commute into the city. So it's a very wealthy, tends to be a very wealthy, very expensive area. That's where the story is set, and it's set in the late 50s, 1960s. Somebody asked about that, and somebody got it right. So that's the setting. That is the setting of the story. So, yeah, what happens to Nettie's family? These are all excellent questions. Some neighbors were very welcoming to him, but time goes on, they're rude again because he's lost his social status. So returning to the theme of excess, Sylvia asked, was he realizing toward the end that he needed to get his act together? Maybe, Sylvia. He does sit down and cry, but sadly, it's too late. So a lot of you figured out that he spends excessively. Why? Because he runs out of money. He had to ask the bizwangers, people whose party he wouldn't even go to, for money at one point. And he also had to ask, now this is how you know life has bottomed out, Simon. We've all been there. He asked his mistress for a loan. You know life's not going well when you have to ask your mistress for a loan. So he spent too much, which Americans do all the time and have created huge financial problems over the years. Obviously, he drinks too much. That's not helpful for your memory in the moment or long term. He drinks too much. He spends too much. Those two things often go together. And last but not least, what else does he have too much of? Sex. He has a mistress, right? So excessive sex, excessive spending, and excessive drinking. Spending. We know he had to ask people for money, and at the end he seems to have lost his house, right? There's a for sale sign, and the gutter has fallen. There's rust on the doorknob. Doorknobs don't get rusty because people put their hands on them. So clearly no one's lived in the house for a while. They would have put the gutter back up, easy fix. We know also, so he borrowed money, that he lost his house. The house is empty, so clearly he's lost his wife and daughters, probably a result of too much sex. And throw a lot of alcohol into that mix, and you're gonna make bad life choices. Now this is a perfectly appropriate time period for a story about American excess. It's after World War II, and that's when things got out of hand. Homes got significantly larger as families got significantly smaller, right? Now we can borrow money so easily with credit cards. How many storage unit facilities are there? There were none when I was a kid, and now I drive past 4 or 5 growing storage units. You know, those like metal huts where you can rent a spot to put your stuff, your excessive stuff that you don't need, your excessive stuff that you don't need. And they're all booked, and they're all building more, right? Good for them, it's easy money. So we live, when people look back on our age, it will be the industrial age, late industrial age, early digital age, wrapped up as the land of excess. Frankly, not to be offensive, we eat too much as well. Even before the opioid epidemic, excessive opioid prescriptions led to addiction. Even before opioid epidemic and overdoses, even before COVID, life expectancy in America was going down because of obesity, people eating too much. So The Swimmer is a great story about the dangers of excess, and we see it throughout. And Cheever writes it in a way, where we see a lifetime of excess all wrapped up in a day and the consequences of it. Even swimming 8 miles in swimming pools, You know, it's a great idea. I love Nettie's energy at the beginning. I love it when he slides down the banister and slaps Aphrodite on the backside. We should all start our day by slapping the goddess of love on the backside after sliding down a banister. But he led then a life of excess that led to nothing. He's broken at the end. He's broken, and without a house and without a family. And he's not in good shape as in late adulthood and at the end of the story. So there's your 15-minute wrap up on Nettie Merrill's The Swimmer, addressing, I think I hit on all your questions one way or another. You guys answered your questions, each other's questions beautifully. Thank you, and thank each other, right, for taking the time to be so respectful and responsive to your fellow classmates. And I hope you're reading all of that and learning from it. What do you think of that, Simon? We got through that pretty quickly, didn't we, bud? He's exhausted. This teaching really takes a toll on him. So I will see you folks around. Email me if you need me. Keep up the good work, and I'll see you on the internet.